Airport Terminal 4, 6:42 p.m. English. The first scream didn't sound human. It cut through Terminal 4 at JFK like metal tearing in half. Luggage wheels froze mid-roll. A toddler began crying somewhere near Gate B23. And then a man in a charcoal overcoat collapsed face first onto the polished airport floor. Dr. Elena Brooks didn't think. Her Starbucks cup slipped from her hand, spilling cold coffee across her sneakers as she dropped to her knees beside him. "No pulse," she whispered. People were already filming. "Call 911!" someone shouted, even though the paramedics were 2 terminals away. Elena rolled the man onto his back. His skin was pale, almost gray. Sweat beaded along his temple. His smartwatch was still blinking red. Irregular heart rhythm alert. She pressed 2 fingers to his carotid artery. Nothing. The boarding announcement echoed overhead. "Final call for Flight 221 to Chicago." Her flight. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket. "Ryan, where are you?" Investors are here." She ignored it. Elena began compressions. Hard, precise. Counted under her breath. 1, 2, 3. The crowd formed a circle. Some murmured. Some stared. One woman kept recording. "Sir, stay with me! Stay with me!" The man gasped suddenly, a broken, rattling inhale, and then went still again. Elena's eyes scanned his chest movement. Asymmetrical expansion. A tearing pain flashed in her memory. Her father clutching his chest 10 years ago, such collapsing in their Bronx apartment while she was finishing a shift. She hadn't made it home in time. Not again. "This is not a heart attack," she muttered. "This is a rupture." A TSA officer approached. "Ma'am, are you qualified?" "I'm an ER physician. Bellevue Hospital." She didn't look up. "Get me a defibrillator now." The officer hesitated. The boarding call repeated. Final boarding. Her phone buzzed again. "Don't do this tonight." Elena pressed harder. The man's pulse flickered faintly under her fingers. She leaned closer to his ear. "You don't get to die here. Not on tile." The defibrillator arrived. Clear! The shock jolted his body violently. Still nothing. Her hands trembled for the first time. Then she noticed something chilling. His smartwatch displayed an alert, time-stamped 9:12 a.m. Thoracic aortic risk warning. Seek immediate care. Ignored. Her chest tightened. Someone knew. Someone dismissed it. Come on," she whispered. She shocked him again. His body convulsed. A thin pulse returned. Weak, but there. The paramedics finally burst through the crowd with a stretcher. "What have we got?" "Possible thoracic aortic rupture," Elena said firmly. "BP unstable. He needs Mount Sinai. Now!" One medic looked skeptical. "You sure?" She locked eyes with him. "If you take him anywhere else, he won't survive the traffic." Silence. Then the medic nodded. They lifted him onto the stretcher. The boarding gate door closed with a heavy metallic thud. Her flight was gone. Her birthday dinner was gone. Her relationship, she felt it in her bones, might be gone. But the man on the stretcher was breathing. Barely. As they rushed toward the ambulance bay, a tall woman in a tailored navy coat pushed through the crowd, panic in her voice. "Gabriel!" The name rippled through nearby businessmen like electricity. Gabriel Whitlock. Elena didn't react to the name, only the blood pressure monitor dropping. She climbed into the ambulance without asking permission. "Ma'am, family only." "I'm not family," she said, strapping in beside the patient. "I'm the reason he's alive." The doors slammed shut. Sirens exploded into the Manhattan dusk. And somewhere behind them, in a restaurant overlooking the East River, a candle flickered beside an empty chair. The ambulance doors slammed shut, sealing Dr. Elena Brooks inside a narrow chamber of flashing red light and rising sirens. Gabriel Whitlock lay strapped to the stretcher, oxygen mask fogging faintly with each shallow breath. His blood pressure monitor screamed in warning tones that seemed louder than the siren itself. BP dropping. 80/40, the paramedic muttered. Elena's pulse stayed steady, even as adrenaline burned through her veins. She pressed 2 fingers against Gabriel's carotid artery again. Weak, thread-like, unstable. "This isn't just cardiac," she said sharply. "This is a thoracic aortic rupture. If that vessel tears completely, he won't make it to the bridge." The younger paramedic hesitated. "Mount Sinai is farther. Queens General is closer." "If you take him there, they'll transfer him anyway," Elena fired back. "We don't have that time." For half a second, the vehicle filled with tension thicker than the smell of antiseptic. Then the driver switched lanes without another word. Outside, Manhattan's skyline loomed in the distance, glass towers reflecting the last purple streaks of sunset. Inside, Elena adjusted the IV line and leaned closer to Gabriel. "Stay with me," she murmured, not softly but commandingly. Her phone buzzed again in her coat pocket. She didn't look, but she knew it was Ryan. Tonight was supposed to be simple. A flight to Chicago. A surprise entrance at the River Cafe, where investors waited with champagne and discreet curiosity. A moment to prove she could balance love and medicine. Instead, she was kneeling over a stranger whose heart had nearly stopped on polished marble. Gabriel's fingers twitched. His eyelids fluttered briefly, revealing unfocused gray eyes. "Don't move," Elena instructed calmly. "You're safe. We're almost there." He tried to speak, but only a strained whisper escaped. Another alarm blared. His heart rhythm spiked erratically. The paramedic glanced at her. "He's crashing." Elena grabbed the portable ultrasound probe from the kit. "Give me 30 seconds." The screen flickered to life, grainy and unstable in the shaking vehicle. She angled it over his chest, searching. There. A shadow where there shouldn't be one. Blood pooling. Her stomach dropped. "He's dissecting," she said. "It's spreading." The ambulance hit a pothole, jolting all of them violently. Gabriel gasped in agony, his hand gripping her wrist with surprising strength. For a split second, their eyes locked. Fear. Raw and human. Not the expression of a billionaire. Not a titan of industry. Just a man who realized he might die. Elena tightened her hold on his hand. "You don't get to leave yet," she said firmly. "Not tonight." In another part of the city, Ryan Caldwell stared at the empty chair across from him. A candlelight reflecting in his Rolex as investors exchanged polite glances. His phone vibrated with a news alert. Unidentified man in critical condition at JFK. He dismissed it without reading further. Back inside the ambulance, the siren screamed louder as they crossed into Manhattan. Elena adjusted the oxygen flow and shouted toward the front. "How far?" 3 minutes! 3 minutes. In trauma medicine, 3 minutes can mean resurrection. Or goodbye. Elena leaned over Gabriel, some pressing, steady pressure to stabilize him as best she could. Her flight was gone. Her relationship might be unraveling. Her career was already fragile. But if Gabriel Whitlock survived the next 3 minutes, everything would change. She just didn't know yet how violently. The ambulance doors burst open beneath the harsh white glow of Mount Sinai's emergency bay. Orderlies rushed forward as Gabriel Whitlock's stretcher rolled across the pavement, wheels rattling against concrete seams. Dr. Elena Brooks jumped down beside him, her beige coat streaked with ambulance dust, navy scrubs wrinkled and damp with sweat. 48-year-old male, she reported sharply while walking. Suspected thoracic aortic dissection. BP unstable. E internal bleed, likely expanding. Inside the trauma room, Fluorescent lights snapped on brighter. Monitors multiplied the chaos into sound. Beeping, humming, alarms rising and falling like uneven breaths. Nurses cut away the remains of Gabriel's overcoat, exposing his pale chest. A cardiothoracic surgeon hurried in, already pulling on gloves. Who made the rupture call? Elena met his eyes. I did. A flicker of skepticism passed over his face. She didn't flinch. Prep. Or now, he ordered. If she's right. We've got minutes. As the team pushed Gabriel toward surgery, Elena stepped aside, chest heaving. Her hands were trembling now that adrenaline had somewhere to go. She wiped them on a sterile towel, forcing control back into her posture. Her phone buzzed again. Ryan. Everyone's asking questions. You left me sitting alone. She stared at the message, then locked her screen without replying. Through the OR viewing window, she watched surgeons surround Gabriel's motionless body. Blue surgical gowns, silver instruments gleaming beneath surgical lights, so intense they erased shadows. A nurse approached her quietly. Family? Elena shook her head. No, just the doctor who was there. Minutes dragged. A woman in a tailored navy coat stormed into the waiting corridor. Miranda Hale. Her posture was immaculate, expression sharpened by authority rather than fear. Where is he? Miranda demanded. I'm in surgery, Elena replied evenly. Miranda's gaze assessed her quickly. Rumpled coat, scuffed sneakers, tired eyes. And you are? Dr. Elena Brooks. A pause. You understand how serious this is, Miranda said. Gabriel Whitlock cannot afford medical uncertainty. Elena's voice cooled. He can't afford a rupture either. Miranda's jaw tightened, but she said nothing more. Inside the operating room, the surgeon's voice rose slightly. Pressure dropping. Clamp. Through the glass, Elena saw a flash of dark red spill before suction cleared the field. Her stomach tightened. She knew that color. She'd seen it before, on her father's shirt. She pressed her palm flat against the cool window. Fight, she whispered under her breath. The hallway fell silent except for distant machinery and the muted rhythm of hospital life continuing elsewhere. Then the surgical monitor steadied. A nurse exhaled audibly. The surgeon stepped back slightly. We've stabilized the tear. Elena closed her eyes for a brief second, relief washing through her so powerfully it almost buckled her knees. Gabriel Whitlock was still alive. But as Miranda turned away to make urgent phone calls, Elena sensed something else beneath the relief. This wasn't just a medical emergency. It was the beginning of something much larger, and she was already standing in the middle of it. The ICU was quieter than the operating room, but the silence felt heavier. Machines hummed in controlled rhythm. A ventilator breathed for Gabriel Whitlock in steady mechanical sighs. The harsh surgical chaos had faded into soft blue monitor lights, reflecting off stainless steel rails. Dr. Elena Brooks stood at the foot of his bed, arms folded tightly across her chest, beige coat draped over a chair nearby. Exhaustion pressed against her bones, but she refused to leave until his vitals stabilized beyond doubt. He's holding, the ICU nurse said quietly. Elena nodded once. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Miranda Hale appeared first, posture still immaculate despite the long night. But she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a teenage girl in an oversized gray hoodie and black Converse sneakers, dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail. Her eyes, Gabriel's gray eyes, were sharp, guarded. This is Isabel, Miranda said evenly. The girl stepped forward slowly, gaze fixed on her father's unconscious form. Elena instinctively softened her voice. He's stable. The surgery was successful. Isabel didn't look at her. Is he going to die? She asked, not dramatically, just plainly. No. Elena answered firmly. Not tonight. That earned her a glance, not gratitude, assessment. You were at the airport, Isabel said. People are saying you made a scene. Elena inhaled slowly. I performed CPR. Silence stretched between them. Miranda's phone buzzed. She stepped aside to take the call, voice lowering into corporate tones. Isabel moved closer to the bed. She reached for her father's hand, fingers slipping around his large palm. He hates hospitals, she said quietly. He thinks they make people weak. Elena gave a faint, almost tired smile. They don't make people weak. They show you who fights. For the first time, Isabel looked directly at her. You don't look like someone who fights, the girl said. Elena met her gaze steadily. I do it quietly. A beat passed. Then Gabriel's heart monitor shifted slightly. Faster, more responsive. Isabel's grip tightened instinctively. Dad, she whispered. His eyelids fluttered. Slowly. Miranda turned sharply at the movement. Elena stepped closer, checking pupil response. Gabriel's eyes opened just enough to register shapes, light, ceiling, blurred figures. Then they found Elena. Recognition flickered. He couldn't speak yet, but his fingers tightened faintly around Isabel's hand. The monitor steadied. In that sterile blue light, something subtle shifted. Not trust, but awareness. Elena stepped back to give space, though she felt Miranda's calculating gaze measuring every second. As Isabel leaned closer to her father, she murmured softly, You scared me. Gabriel's eyes never left Elena, and for the first time, why, he looked less like a billionaire recovering from surgery, and more like a man who had just realized someone had chosen his life over their own. By morning, the hospital lobby no longer felt like a hospital. It felt like a press conference. Satellite vans lined the curb outside Mount Sinai. Camera crews clustered near the entrance, breath fogging in the cold Manhattan air. Headlines rolled across phone screens. Billionaire Gabriel Whitlock saved by ER doctor at JFK. Heroic intervention or medical overreach. Dr. Elena Brooks stood inside the employee corridor, staring at one of the headlines glowing on a mounted television. The word overreach lingered longer than the praise. A nurse hurried past her. Administration wants you upstairs, now. Of course they did. Inside a small conference room, 2 hospital board members sat rigidly at a polished table. Legal folders were already open. Dr. Brooks, one began, tone clipped. You made an independent diagnosis in a non-hospital setting and directed emergency transport without formal authority. Elena folded her hands calmly. Well, I made a life-saving call. That remains under review. Under review. She felt the phrase settle heavily in her chest. Meanwhile, upstairs in the ICU, Gabriel Whitlock was awake, weak but conscious. Isabel sat beside him in her gray hoodie, watching every nurse who entered as if guarding a fortress. Dad, she said quietly, holding up her phone. They're talking about her. Gabriel's eyes moved slowly toward the screen. A clip replayed grainy airport footage. Elena performing CPR, the hair falling loose, coat stained, shouting for a defibrillator. She stayed, Isabel murmured. Gabriel's voice was rough. What's her name? Dr. Elena Brooks. Downstairs, Elena stepped out of the conference room with controlled composure, but her hands were ice cold. Her phone buzzed again. Ryan. She hesitated before answering. You've seen the coverage? He asked, voice tight. My firm is asking questions. This is messy. Messy, she repeated. They're debating whether you acted outside protocol. Silence stretched between them. I saved him, she said quietly. Ryan exhaled sharply. That's not the point. And suddenly, she understood. For Ryan, perception mattered more than pulse. Upstairs, Miranda Hale watched financial news from a private ICU waiting room. Her expression never shifted as analysts speculated how Whitlock infrastructure stock might respond to instability. She muted the television. This wasn't over. Back in the ICU, Gabriel adjusted slightly, pain flickering across his face.
Okay.
"Get her," he told Isabel softly.
I'm ready.
"Who?" "The doctor." Isabel hesitated only a second before stepping into the hallway. She spotted Elena near the nurse's station. For the first time, her voice held something different. Less accusation, more urgency. "He's asking for you." And in that moment, Elena realized the story spreading across Manhattan wasn't the real turning point. What mattered was happening quietly. Inside one hospital room, the ICU door opened quietly, but the tension inside the room shifted instantly. Dr. Elena Brooks stepped in, navy scrubs crisp despite the long night, beige coat folded neatly over her arm. Gabriel Whitlock was propped slightly upright now, color slowly returning to his face, surgical lines hidden beneath fresh bandaging. Isabel stood beside the bed, arms crossed protectively. "He asked for you," she said simply. Elena approached calmly. "How are you feeling?" Gabriel's voice was rough but steadier. "Alive." A faint, almost ironic smile crossed his lips. She checked his vitals without ceremony, professional distance intact. "You were very close to not being." He studied her face carefully. "You made the call in the ambulance." "Yes." "You argued for Mount Sinai." Silence lingered, not uncomfortable, but heavy with unspoken awareness. Outside the room, Miranda Hale watched through the glass panel, on phone already pressed to her ear. Financial news continued speculating about executive stability. Whitlock infrastructure stock had dipped 3 points at opening. Gabriel shifted slightly, wincing. "Help me sit up," he said. Elena adjusted the bed slowly. Isabel hovered, tension visible in her jaw. "Is the board meeting canceled?" Gabriel asked, eyes moving toward Miranda outside. "It was postponed," Elena answered carefully. "Your priority is recovery." A shadow crossed his expression. "No," he said quietly. "My priority is control." Elena met his gaze evenly. Control didn't prevent this. That landed. For a brief second, something flickered behind his guarded demeanor. Recognition, maybe even humility. Isabel watched the exchange closely. "Dad," she said, voice softer than before. She stayed. Gabriel's eyes shifted back to Elena. "I heard that," he said. "Even before I woke up. I heard your voice." Elena didn't know how to respond to that. Before she could, the ICU door opened again. 2 hospital board members entered, tension clear in their posture. "Mr. Whitlock," one began carefully. "We're reviewing Dr. Brooks' actions during transport. There are concerns regarding protocol." The air changed instantly. Gabriel's gaze sharpened. "Concerns?" he repeated. Elena stepped back slightly, prepared to deflect. "It's standard review." "No," Gabriel interrupted, voice gaining unexpected strength. "It's not standard when someone saves your life." The room went still. "I want it on record," he continued, eyes never leaving the board members, "that Dr. Elena Brooks made the correct call. Without her, I would be dead." Miranda's expression shifted almost imperceptibly behind the glass. The board members exchanged a glance. Public defense from Gabriel Whitlock carried weight. Serious weight. Elena felt the ground subtly shift beneath her feet. Not relief. Not yet. But momentum. As the board members retreated, Gabriel leaned back against the pillows, exhausted. Isabel looked between them both, something changing behind her guarded eyes. Outside the ICU, reporters waited. Inside, alliances were forming. And for the first time since the airport floor, Elena realized. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about power. By noon, the narrative had shifted again. News anchors replayed Gabriel Whitlock's statement in a tight loop. Without her, I would be dead. For most viewers, it sounded like gratitude. For certain executives, it sounded like disruption. Inside a glass-walled conference room at Whitlock Infrastructure's Manhattan headquarters, Miranda Hale stood at the head of the table, hands resting lightly against polished oak. "Our CEO is recovering," she said smoothly. "No, but markets respond to perception. Stability must be maintained." A board member leaned forward. "The doctor is becoming part of the story." Miranda's eyes cooled. Exactly. Back at Mount Sinai, Dr. Elena Brooks was unaware of the strategy forming around her name. She sat alone in the physician lounge, scrolling through her phone. Comment sections were brutal. Attention seeker, ambulance quarterback, publicity stunt for a billionaire. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't cry. She had thicker skin than that. Her phone rang. Ryan. She stared at it for 3 rings before answering. "My firm is being dragged into this," he said without greeting. "There are rumors Whitlock's board is investigating internal alert systems." "And?" she asked quietly. "And if this turns into a corporate negligence issue, investors panic. My team is advising distance." "Distance from what?" "From you." The word landed colder than the hospital tiles. "So that's it?" she asked. "I have a career to protect, Elena." She closed her eyes briefly. "I saved a life." "I know," he replied. "But timing matters." Timing. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she ended the call first. Upstairs in the ICU, Isabel sat near the window, headphones around her neck, pretending to scroll while listening carefully. Miranda entered the room with controlled grace. "Your father needs calm," Miranda said softly. "No unnecessary visitors." Isabel glanced up. "Doctor, Brooks isn't unnecessary," Miranda offered a thin smile. "We'll see." Later that afternoon, Elena was called back into administration. This time, the tone had sharpened. "Dr. Brooks," a senior director began, "we've received a formal complaint suggesting your intervention may have interfered with pre-existing executive medical protocols." Elena blinked. "What protocols?" "That's under review." She understood instantly. This wasn't about medicine anymore. This was about power, and who controlled the version of events the public believed. As she stepped back into the hallway, she saw Isabel standing there unexpectedly. The teenager's voice was steady. "They're trying to blame you." Elena studied her face. "Yes," she said quietly. Isabel didn't hesitate. "Then they're going to have to go through me." For the first time since the airport floor, Elena felt something new rising beneath the pressure. Not fear, not doubt, but alliance. And somewhere across the city, Miranda Hale began making another phone call. The first crack didn't come from the media. It came from a timestamp. Late that evening, Isabel Whitlock sat alone in the ICU family lounge, her father asleep behind the glass wall. Her gray hoodie sleeves covered half her hands as she scrolled through archived alerts on his smartwatch app, something she had synced months ago out of curiosity. 9:12 a.m., thoracic aortic risk warning. 9:14 a.m., secondary escalation prompt. 9:16 a.m., alert access denied. Her breathing slowed. Access denied. Oh, she frowned and tapped deeper into the notification history. The health alert had attempted to forward to Gabriel's executive medical monitoring team, but the log showed temporary administrative restriction. Isabel's stomach tightened. She wasn't a corporate strategist. She was 15. But she understood what restricted meant. Upstairs, Miranda Hale stood near the ICU window, speaking quietly into her phone. "Yes," she said smoothly. We need to emphasize that emergency protocols were already in place before the airport incident. A pause. And yes, keep the narrative centered on internal systems, not independent actors. Not independent actors. Meaning Elena. Downstairs, Dr. Elena Brooks was reviewing patient charts at the nurses' station when Gabriel's private physician approached her quietly. "There's something you should know," he said. He handed her a printed summary of executive health monitoring reports. She scanned it quickly. The alert delay, the administrative override. Her pulse slowed instead of racing. This wasn't chaos. It was orchestration. "Who has access authority?" she asked calmly. The physician hesitated. "Senior operations." Elena didn't need the name spelled out. Meanwhile, across town in his glass office overlooking Park Avenue, Ryan Caldwell stood before a camera crew from a financial news outlet. "We fully support corporate transparency," he said confidently. "What? Executive health protocols must function without emotional interference." Emotional interference. He didn't say her name. He didn't have to. Back at the hospital, Isabel stepped into the hallway and nearly collided with Elena. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Isabel held up her phone, screen glowing. They locked the alert before he collapsed. Elena studied the screen carefully. She felt the weight of what it meant. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was motive. Behind them, Gabriel stirred faintly inside his room, unaware that the version of his survival being constructed outside those walls was beginning to fracture. Isabel looked up at Elena, fear and determination blending together. If they did this on purpose... Elena's expression hardened, not with anger, but with clarity. Then they underestimated the wrong people. Down the corridor, Miranda ended another phone call. The cracks in the system were spreading. And for the first time, the story was no longer about whether Elena had overstepped. It was about who had tried to stop Gabriel from surviving at all. The hospital room felt smaller that morning. Gabriel Whitlock sat upright now, color returning to his face, though fatigue still traced the lines beneath his eyes. The city skyline shimmered beyond the ICU window, indifferent to the tension gathering inside. Elena stood near the foot of the bed, arms loosely folded, while Isabel hovered by the side rail. "There was an alert," Isabel said carefully. "It was blocked." Gabriel's gaze shifted to Elena. She didn't dramatize it. "There was an administrative override on your medical monitoring system," she said calmly. "Minutes before your collapse." Silence. The air seemed to thin. Gabriel's jaw tightened slightly, not in panic, but calculation. "Who has override authority?" he asked. "Senior operations," Elena replied. He didn't need more. Across town, Whitlock Infrastructure's executive board had already assembled. Miranda Hale stood before a digital presentation screen, composed as ever. "What, speculation about internal systems is dangerous?" she said evenly. "We must control the narrative before it controls us." A legal advisor leaned forward. "Is there exposure?" Miranda's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Not if we frame it correctly." Back in the ICU, Gabriel motioned for his secure tablet from the bedside drawer. His hands were slower than usual, but steady. "Elena," he said, voice low. "If this becomes public, they will try to discredit you." "I'm already being reviewed," she answered. Isabel stepped closer. "They're already doing that." Gabriel looked at his daughter for a long moment. "Bring in internal security," he said finally. Within an hour, a senior investigator from Whitlock's Risk Division arrived quietly at the hospital. No press, no announcement. Elena remained in the room as Gabriel explained the alert suppression. The investigator's expression shifted subtly. "If override logs were altered," he said carefully, "that's not a protocol issue. That's intent." Intent. The word hung in the air. Meanwhile, Ryan Caldwell watched financial news from his office. tension visible beneath his polished confidence. Stock volatility tickers flashed red. A reporter speculated about executive accountability. Ryan muted the screen. Timing mattered. He reached for his phone and drafted a brief public statement supporting corporate clarity and governance review. No mention of Elena. Back at Mount Sinai, Isabel stood by the window, arms crossed. "They think they can spin it," she said quietly. Gabriel's eyes hardened. "Then we don't let them." Elena watched father and daughter exchange that look, shared resolve, sharpened by betrayal. This was no longer about survival. It was about truth. And once investigations began, and stories stopped being controlled, they started being exposed. Outside, reporters waited for updates. Inside, power was shifting again. And this time, it wasn't subtle. By sunrise, Gabriel Whitlock had done something no one expected. He called an emergency board session from his hospital bed. The news didn't break publicly, yet. But inside Whitlock infrastructure, panic moved faster than headlines. Miranda Hale received the secure notification while standing in her corner office overlooking Manhattan. For the first time in years, her reflection in the glass looked unsettled. "Effective immediately," the message read, "so all executive override privileges are suspended pending review." She didn't sit down. At Mount Sinai, Gabriel adjusted the collar of his recovery gown and accepted the secure video tablet from internal security. His face was still pale, but his eyes were steady. Elena stood near the window, arms folded loosely. Isabel sat beside her father, silent but alert. The screen filled with the boardroom, polished oak table, leather chairs, city skyline behind them. Miranda appeared composed. "Gabrielle," she began smoothly, "this seems unnecessary during your recovery." He didn't blink. "What's unnecessary," he replied calmly, "is a blocked medical alert 15 minutes before I collapse." Silence fell across the digital room. A board member cleared his throat. "We are reviewing system logs." "No," Gabriel interrupted. "You're reviewing authority." Miranda's expression remained carefully neutral. "Elena Brooks' actions are also under review," she said. "There were deviations from protocol." Isabel stiffened. Gabriel's voice sharpened slightly. "If Dr. Brooks had followed protocol instead of instinct, I would be dead." The statement landed harder this time, because it was no longer emotional. It was strategic. Down the hallway, reporters had begun gathering again, tipped off by whispers of instability. Inside the virtual boardroom, the internal security investigator presented initial findings. "Alert suppression required administrative authentication," he said. "Override originated from operations access credentials." Miranda's fingers tightened almost imperceptibly around her tablet. "Shared credentials exist," she countered evenly. Gabriel leaned forward slightly, ignoring the pain in his chest. "Then we audit them." The room shifted. Power was no longer theoretical. Ryan Caldwell watched the developing situation from his Park Avenue office, financial feeds updating rapidly. Whitlock stock stabilized slightly, market confidence reacting not to scandal, but to decisive control. Ryan exhaled. He had miscalculated. Back in the ICU, Gabriel ended the session with one final directive. "Full transparency, internal audit, immediate." The screen went dark. Elena studied him carefully. "You're escalating this," she said quietly. "I'm correcting it," he replied. Outside, Manhattan moved as it always did, unaware that inside one hospital room, a corporate empire had just changed direction. And this time, Miranda wasn't controlling the narrative. Gabriel was. By late afternoon, the hospital auditorium was full. Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters filled the first 3 rows. Hospital executives stood near the podium, faces carefully composed. A large banner behind them read, "Mount Sinai Statement regarding Richard Sinclair." Olivia hadn't expected to be there. She was still technically on leave. Yet 10 minutes earlier, an administrator had knocked on the ICU waiting room door and said, "Mr. Sinclair's family has requested your presence." Now she stood off to the side of the stage, navy coat replaced by a simple charcoal blazer, pale blue blouse pressed, hair neatly pulled back. She looked steady. She didn't feel steady. Daniel stood near the podium as well, hands clasped behind his back, expression neutral. The CEO of the hospital stepped forward first. "We are grateful to report that Mr. Richard Sinclair is stable following emergency intervention." Flashbulbs exploded, and then the CEO continued. "We would like to clarify something important." A pause. At JFK Airport, before emergency services arrived, a physician began immediate CPR, restoring circulation and giving Mr. Sinclair a chance to survive. Olivia's pulse hammered in her ears. "That physician," the COO said, turning slightly, "is Dr. Olivia Hayes." For a split second, the room went silent. Then cameras pivoted, microphones angled toward her. Daniel's posture stiffened almost imperceptibly. Olivia stepped forward slowly. The CEO handed her the microphone. Her hand felt steady around it. "I did what any doctor would do," she began calmly. "There was no pulse. There was no time to debate optics. There was only a patient." The room was silent. "I am grateful Mr. Sinclair survived," she continued. "But the real credit belongs to every nurse and physician who fought for him afterward." Across the front row, Richard Sinclair's daughter nodded, eyes shining. A reporter raised her hand. "Dr. Hayes, how do you respond to criticism that your actions were reckless?" Olivia met her gaze. "If saving someone's life looks reckless," she said evenly, "then perhaps we need to reconsider what responsibility means." The room exhaled, and in that moment, the narrative didn't just shift, it settled. The applause from the press conference hadn't even faded when the first crack appeared. Olivia was walking back toward the ICU floor when she noticed two members of the hospital's legal team speaking in low, urgent tones outside Daniel's office. Their expressions were no longer neutral. They were concerned. Inside the staff lounge, a nurse hurried toward her. "Have you seen this?" she whispered, holding out her phone. It wasn't a headline. It was security footage, full footage, or airport surveillance, wide angle, time-stamped. The clip showed the businessman collapsing. It showed Olivia dropping her bag without hesitation. It showed her checking for a pulse before anyone else moved. And it showed something else. A full 3 minutes passed before airport EMS reached the scene. 3 minutes that would have meant brain death. The video had been released by JFK's internal security department after Sinclair's legal team requested the original file. And at the bottom of the screen was a statement. "Immediate CPR by Dr. Olivia Hayes prevented fatal delay." Olivia's breath caught. But that wasn't the only development. A second document was circulating among the board, an internal email thread. Daniel had sent it the night before the press conference. In it, he had suggested that early non-hospital intervention may have contributed to instability upon arrival. He had implied that airport CPR might have worsened the condition. The timestamp was clear. He had tried to shape the narrative before the full data was reviewed. By the time Olivia reached the hallway outside his office, the legal team had already stepped inside. Voices were raised, controlled, but sharp. "This contradicts your statement," one of the attorneys said. Daniel's reply was muffled, defensive. "I was protecting the institution." "No," the attorney answered. "You were protecting yourself." The hallway felt very still. For days, Olivia had stood alone under suspicion. Now the weight had shifted. A door opened abruptly. Daniel stepped out, face pale for the first time, white coat no longer a symbol of authority, but exposure. His eyes met Olivia's. This time, he didn't speak. He walked past her in silence, and for the first time since JFK, she wasn't the one being questioned. Total words. 401. Daniel's removal happened faster than anyone expected. By early evening, an official email from the hospital board circulated through every department inbox. Effective immediately, Dr. Daniel Brooks is relieved of supervisory duties, pending formal review. No dramatic announcement, no public spectacle, just one sentence. But inside Mount Sinai, it felt seismic. Olivia read the email twice in the quiet of the physician's lounge. Her name wasn't mentioned. It didn't need to be. Across the hallway, Daniel's office door stood open. 2 administrative staff members quietly boxed up framed certificates, medical journals, and the pristine nameplate that had once gleamed on his desk. Daniel himself stood stiffly beside them, no longer issuing instructions, no longer directing teams. His white coat was folded over his arm instead of worn like armor. For the first time, he looked smaller. A few staff members passed by, offering polite nods. No one lingered. The legal team's findings had been decisive. His email had demonstrated intent, not to protect the hospital, but to redirect blame before facts were confirmed. Combined with the surveillance footage, the narrative was undeniable. He had tried to protect his position, and nearly cost someone else theirs. Olivia stepped into the hallway just as Daniel exited his office for the last time. Their eyes met. He opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it again. Finally, he said, "Thought you could have let it go." The words were quiet, almost tired. Olivia held his gaze evenly. "I already did," she replied. He searched her face for anger, for triumph, anything. He found neither. Only steadiness. A security badge was deactivated at the reception desk. The faint electronic beep echoed louder than expected. Daniel handed it over without protest. As he walked toward the elevator, conversations resumed behind him. Monitors beeped. Pages were called. The hospital returned to motion. Life moved forward. Through the ICU glass, Richard Sinclair's heart rhythm remained stable. Olivia felt no celebration rising in her chest, only balance. The scale had tipped, not because she pushed it, but because the truth had. And for the first time since the airport floor at JFK, she wasn't bracing for impact. She was standing on solid ground. Ethan didn't expect consequences to arrive so quietly. The morning after the press conference, he was called into the senior partner's office at Caldwell and Price. The view from the 32nd floor overlooked Park Avenue, polished and powerful. Usually, that skyline steadied him. Today, it felt distant. 3 partners sat across the conference table. No smiles, no small talk. "We've reviewed the situation," the managing partner began, fingers steepled. "Your public association with the Mount Sinai controversy has raised concerns among several clients." Ethan kept his expression composed. "The narrative has shifted. She was cleared." "That's precisely the issue," another partner replied. "Your initial statements to the press suggested recklessness. Now that the facts are public, it appears misaligned." Misaligned. The word landed harder than accusation. "Our firm cannot appear reactive or politically motivated," the managing partner continued. "We need discretion, stability." Stability. The same word he had used on Olivia. "So what are you saying?" Ethan asked evenly. "We're asking you to step back from active cases while we assess reputational impact." Step back. He nodded once, tight. When he exited the office, the hallway felt longer than usual. Associates who once greeted him warmly now offered brief, careful nods. And screens glowed with financial tickers and legal briefs, but conversations dimmed as he passed. By afternoon, the news cycle had turned again. A business blog published a timeline of statements made during the controversy. It included a quote from Ethan, taken from a brief sidewalk exchange with reporters, where he had called the airport intervention irresponsible. The article's headline was blunt: "Law firm partner criticized doctor who saved billionaire." The comments were merciless. No, wrong side of history. Image over integrity. Fire him. His phone buzzed relentlessly. For the first time in years, Ethan turned it off. That evening, he stood alone in his apartment overlooking the city. The Tiffany ring box remained unopened on his kitchen counter. He picked it up slowly. He had wanted control, predictability, a life that aligned perfectly with his ambition. Instead, he had underestimated something simple: character. And now, as the skyline glittered beyond the glass, he understood too late. Some choices don't just expose others, they expose you. Richard Sinclair asked to see her alone. The request came quietly, delivered by his daughter outside the ICU. "He's awake," she said gently. "And he remembers you." Olivia followed her into the private recovery suite, reserved for high-profile patients. The room was larger than a standard ICU space. Soft lighting, discreet security near the door, machines humming steadily beside the bed. Richard Sinclair looked smaller, without the power of headlines attached to his name. His silver hair was thinner than it had appeared on magazine covers, his skin pale, but his eyes sharp. When he saw her, something changed in his expression. "You didn't hesitate," he said, voice rough but steady. Olivia stepped closer to the bedside. There wasn't time. He studied her carefully, as if measuring something deeper than words. "I've reviewed the footage," he continued. 7 minutes without circulation. 3 of those minutes belong to you." She shifted slightly. Oh, it was instinct. "No," he said softly. "It was character." Silence settled between them, not awkward, but meaningful. His daughter stood near the window, watching. "I built my company on decisive action," Sinclair said. "But I've learned something this week. Decisiveness without integrity is dangerous." Olivia held his gaze. "I'm told the hospital placed you on leave," he added. "That's being resolved," she replied evenly. A faint smile crossed his face. "So it already has." He gestured toward a folder resting on the bedside table. His daughter handed it to Olivia. Inside was a formal letter. The Sinclair Foundation had not only confirmed its full $200 million donation, it had designated funding for an emergency response innovation program, and her name was written beneath it. "Director," Sinclair said quietly, "if you're willing." Olivia's breath caught. "This isn't charity," he continued. "It's alignment. We need doctors who act before committees." She looked down at the letter, then back at him. "You saved my life," he said. "Let me invest in yours." Emotion tightened her throat, but she kept her composure. "I didn't do it for recognition." "I know," he replied. "That's exactly why you deserve it." Outside the room, the city moved forward. Inside, something else shifted. For the first time since JFK, Olivia wasn't defending her choices. She was being rewarded for them. The reinstatement email arrived at 8:03 a.m. Olivia was standing in her apartment kitchen, coffee untouched, sunrise spilling pale gold across the Manhattan skyline. For a brief second, she simply stared at the subject line. Formal reinstatement and appointment. Her pulse steadied, not from shock this time, but from recognition. Mount Sinai's board had reversed her suspension effective immediately. More than that, sir, they had officially appointed her director of the newly established Emergency Response Innovation Program, funded through the Sinclair Foundation. The same institution that had questioned her judgment now cited her decisive clinical leadership as the model for future emergency protocol. She exhaled slowly. Not vindication. Alignment. By mid-morning, she walked through the hospital doors again, not as a suspended physician under scrutiny, but as a department head. Conversations quieted for a moment when she entered the lobby. Not from gossip, from respect. A nurse approached first. "We're proud of you," she said softly. Olivia smiled gently. "We did this together." Upstairs, the board had requested a brief internal gathering. No press, no spectacle. The CEO spoke clearly. Dr. Hayes demonstrated the level of clinical courage and ethical clarity this institution must stand for. There was no hesitation this time. Applause filled the room. Measured, professional, sincere. Olivia stepped forward when invited. "I didn't act to make a statement," she said calmly. "I acted because someone needed help." She paused, scanning the faces around her. If we ever reach a point where we hesitate to do the right thing because of optics, then we've already failed. Silence followed, not uncomfortable, convicted. Later that afternoon, she stood in the ICU again, this time not outside the glass, but at the bedside. Richard Sinclair's heart rhythm was steady, strong. He nodded at her when she entered. "You're back," he said. "Yes," she replied. Outside the hospital, the city moved forward as it always did. But inside, something fundamental had shifted. Olivia no longer carried the weight of defense. She carried responsibility. And for the first time since the airport floor at JFK, she wasn't fighting to prove she belonged. She knew she did. Ethan waited outside the hospital again. But this time, there were no reporters, no cameras, no flashing lights, just early evening air and the quiet hum of Manhattan traffic. Olivia spotted him as she exited the revolving doors. She was still in her charcoal blazer, hospital badge clipped neatly at her waist, posture composed after a long day of meetings and patient rounds. He looked different. No tailored overcoat, no sharp edges, just a simple navy jacket, hands visible, and shoulders slightly lowered. "I wasn't sure you'd stop," he admitted when she approached. "I almost didn't," she replied honestly. For a moment, neither spoke. The city moved around them, indifferent. "I handled everything wrong," Ethan began. His voice lacked its usual polish. "I reacted out of fear, not logic." Olivia studied him carefully. "I thought I was protecting stability," he continued. "But I was protecting my image." She didn't interrupt. "I saw the footage," he said quietly. "All of it. You didn't hesitate. You didn't think about consequences. You just acted." "That's the job," she replied. "No," he said softly. "That's who you are." The words landed differently this time. He reached into his pocket, then paused. Instead of pulling out the ring box, he withdrew an envelope. "I declined a major client today," he said. "They wanted me to publicly question your judgment to distance the firm." Olivia's eyes flickered slightly. I said no." Silence settled between them again, less sharp than before. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he added. "I just needed you to know. I was wrong." The honesty felt unfamiliar coming from him, but so did the humility. She looked at him for a long moment. "You weren't wrong for being afraid," she said gently. "You were wrong for asking me to be smaller, so you wouldn't be." He nodded slowly. "I don't want you smaller," he said. I just didn't know how to stand next to someone who shines without asking permission." Traffic lights changed behind them. The city kept moving. And for the first time, this wasn't about headlines or optics. It was about whether two people could grow past who they had been. Olivia took a quiet breath. "I don't need you to fix what happened," she said. "I need you to understand it." Olivia didn't answer Ethan right away. The evening air felt different now, less confrontational, more honest. The space between them wasn't heavy anymore. It was thoughtful. "I believe you," she said finally. Ethan's shoulders shifted slightly, as if bracing for impact that didn't come. But belief isn't the same as trust, she continued. He nodded. I know. For years, their relationship had been built on compatibility, ambition, schedules, shared goals. It had looked impressive from the outside, balanced, strategic. But love, Olivia realized, wasn't supposed to feel negotiated. When everything turned against me, she said quietly, I didn't need someone to fix it. I needed someone who wouldn't flinch. Ethan absorbed the words without defense. I flinched, he admitted. Yes, she said gently. You did. Traffic flowed steadily behind them. The city lights reflected off the glass buildings like distant constellations, bright, but untouchable. I'm not angry, Olivia continued, and I'm not trying to punish you. She stepped a little closer, not intimate, just clear. But I can't go back to who we were. Ethan searched her face, understanding dawning slowly. I've spent the last week learning something, she said. I don't need someone who stands in front of me. I need someone who stands beside me. Silence stretched again, but softer. I want that, he said. I know you do, she replied. Another pause. But wanting and being ready aren't always the same. The honesty in her voice held no cruelty, only growth. She reached out, not for his hand, but for the envelope he had given her earlier. She placed it back into his palm. Keep becoming who you're trying to be, she said. And if our paths meet again, we'll see. He swallowed, eyes steady but humbled. You're choosing yourself, he said quietly. Yes, Olivia replied, not for the first time. She turned then, walking back toward the hospital entrance, not running, not retreating, just moving forward. Ethan remained on the sidewalk, watching her disappear through the revolving doors. This time he didn't try to stop her, because for once he understood. Loving someone strong means learning how to grow strong too. 6 months later, the ballroom at the Plaza Hotel overlooked Central Park, glowing in early spring light. The banner behind the stage read, Sinclair Foundation Emergency Response Innovation Initiative. Olivia stood at the podium, no longer introduced as the doctor from the airport. She was introduced as director. Her ivory silk dress was simple but elegant, paired with a tailored cream blazer. Her hair fell softly over her shoulders tonight, less clinical, more personal. The room was filled with hospital leaders, paramedics, medical students, and community partners. Richard Sinclair sat in the front row beside his daughter, fully recovered, posture strong. When he caught Olivia's eye, he gave a small nod, quiet pride, not ownership. This program isn't about headlines, Olivia began. It's about seconds. The seconds when someone chooses to act. The audience listened in complete silence. Every ambulance team receiving new training, every airport staff member certified in advanced CPR. This is what matters. Applause rose, genuine and sustained. The foundation's investment had expanded nationwide. Emergency response protocols were already being revised in multiple cities. What started on a cold airport floor had become systemic change. After the speech, as guests mingled beneath crystal chandeliers, Olivia stepped aside toward the balcony overlooking Central Park. The skyline shimmered in the distance. Congratulations, Director. She turned. Ethan stood there, not in a tailored power suit, but in a simple dark suit without a tie. There was no urgency in his posture, no need to prove anything. I heard about the national rollout, he said. You didn't just save a life, you changed policy. She smiled slightly. It was never just about one person. He nodded. I've spent the last 6 months rebuilding my practice, different clients, different priorities. She studied him. And? She asked gently. And I finally understand what standing beside someone means. Silence, this time warm, He didn't reach for her. He didn't rush. "I'm not here to interrupt your life," he said. "I'm here to see if I can be part of it." Olivia looked back at the city lights, then at him. This time, she didn't step away. She stepped forward. Because strength had never required solitude. And love, real love, didn't ask her to shrink. It rose with her, and just like that, our story comes to a close. But my wonderful friends, if you're still here right now, if you've stayed with Olivia through every doubt, every accusation, every quiet decision, then something in this story has touched your heart. And maybe that something isn't just about her. Maybe it's about you. Olivia's journey reminds us of a simple but powerful truth. You cannot control how the world reacts to your integrity, but you can control whether you live by it. In a culture that often rewards image over substance, her choice echoes the spirit of rational self-respect found in objectivist thought. That acting according to your highest values without apology is not selfishness, but moral clarity. As Ayn Rand wrote, the question isn't who is going to let me, it's who is going to stop me. Choosing yourself is not abandoning others. It is refusing to betray your own conscience for approval. And real love, real partnership, never asks you to shrink so someone else can feel taller. So now I ask you gently, where in your life are you hesitating? Where are you shrinking? If this story meant something to you, if it stirred courage, clarity, or healing, please like this video, share it with someone who needs strength today, and subscribe to our channel. Stay with us, because sometimes the life you deserve begins the moment you stop apologizing for being who you are. And just like that, our story comes to a close. But my wonderful friends, if you're still here with me right now, that means something. It means something in this journey touched your heart in a quiet, personal way. Maybe it was Elena's courage. Maybe it was Gabriel learning to trust again. Maybe it was Isabel choosing love over fear. And now, let's look at this together, honestly, gently. This story reminds us that integrity is not loud, doesn't fight for attention. It simply stands firm when it matters most. In a world that often rewards power and position, we are reminded of something deeper. Character is destiny. As Ayn Rand once wrote in her philosophy of rational self-interest, integrity is the recognition of the fact that you cannot fake your consciousness. True strength comes from living in alignment with your values, even when it costs you comfort, status, or approval. Elena didn't act for praise. Gabriel didn't choose love out of weakness. They chose alignment. And that's something we can all apply in our own lives. Choose courage over convenience, truth over optics, partnership over ego. So if this story meant something to you, if it stirred something real inside your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows stories like this, stories about healing, accountability, and chosen love, to keep reaching others who may need them. And if you're still here, thank you. That means you believe, just a little, that integrity still matters. This story is a work of fiction created for entertainment and inspirational purposes. While it references real locations such as JFK Airport, Manhattan, and the Plaza Hotel to create a realistic atmosphere, the characters, events, corporations, and legal proceedings portrayed in this video are entirely fictional. Any resemblance to real individuals, companies, or actual events is purely coincidental. The medical, legal, and corporate elements are dramatized to support storytelling and should not be interpreted as factual reporting, professional advice, or documentation of real incidents. The purpose of this content is to explore themes of integrity, accountability, healing, and chosen love in a cinematic narrative format. Viewer discretion and personal interpretation are encouraged, and no claims are made regarding real-world outcomes, guarantees, or representations.